Today we're taking a look at Alex Kidd. Yeah, you remember Alex Kidd, right? No? Well, to be honest, no one remembers Alex Kidd. But in case you were curious, Alex Kidd was Sega's mascot before they introduced Sonic the Hedgehog. Alex was a weird, big-eared, red jumpsuit-wearing, enemy-punching hero in his own game series until 1990, after which he hasn't appeared in any games except for a cameo as a trophy in Brawl. The first of his 6 games was released in 1986, and yes, that means that between 1986 and 1990, Alex appeared in a total of 6 games within a 5-year period, 5 for the Master System and 1 for the Sega Mega Drive, aka Genesis. It should be obvious that Sega was pushing him as an alternative and a competitor to Nintendo's Mario games on the NES, which were selling and overall doing much better. We'll now dive head deep into the world of Alex Kidd. The first game is called Alex Kidd in Miracle World, where Alex has to save his kingdom from the evil King Janken. Yeah, did I mention Alex is the prince of his own country? So it's a typical colorful platformer. I'd say graphically it beats the hell out of Super Mario Bros., but is it as much fun? Not really. Alex can only kill enemies by punching or by shooting rays with a ring you can find, but if you land on an enemy, you die instantly. Fun, huh? No, that's because one-hit deaths are never fun. I don't care what the Contra fanboys say. And especially in a platformer where you're bound to land on an enemy at least once by accident, it really starts to eat away at the game's enjoyability. Alex Kidd is one of those games that requires a lot of practice and learning the stages inside out, so you'll find out what hurts you and what's the safest way to get past. Now, by comparison to Mario, it's actually got things like shops, characters that talk to you, and boss fights with other characters, and not just the same boss each time like in Mario. However, I find that the only time I'm having fun is when I get the Petacopter, that's P-E-T-I, just to make sure that people don't think I'm saying something else. I have the most fun when I'm just tearing shit up and flying over the enemies on the ground. The motorcycle is also kind of fun, but a few of the levels where you can use it are a bit too annoying. Also, you have to challenge characters in rounds of rock, paper, scissors. Yeah, that's Alex Kidd's big thing. Rock, paper, scissors. Did I mention that the villain of the game, King Janken, is actually named after Yankenpo, which is the Japanese name for rock, paper, scissors? Call me crazy, but I think you should never make games out of things that are actually more fun in real life. So that's Alex Kidd. Not a bad, but not a spectacular 2D platformer. Despite some advantages over Mario, the problem is that it's not as fun as Mario. You can get pretty far in Mario before you run out of extra lives, and they're not as hard to come by, unlike in Alex Kidd. It's just too much trial and error for a platformer, which sucks the fun out of it. Well, the game must have actually done pretty well, because it was actually included as a built-in game for the Model 2 Master System, just in case you're interested. There wasn't strictly speaking a sequel, but there was an Alex Kidd arcade game that came out the same year as Miracle World and was ported to the Master System in 1988, called Alex Kidd and the Lost Stars. But I think it should have been called Alex Kidd Finds the Miracle Ball, because that's what the game tells you to do at the very start of every single level.
The Miracle Ball. Find the Miracle Ball. Find the Miracle Ball.
It's got some things over the first game. You've got an energy bar, so at least you don't die from one hit anymore. Well, sort of. You die, and then you immediately respawn. It seems a tad pointless until you realize that your energy meter is also your timer. In this game, you have to get to the goal before you run out of time, and that means taking damage takes away from your energy bar and your time. You can find extensions to it in the form of power-ups, but these only appear when you jump up in the air or at predetermined spots where they float down on you. So, it's another one of those stupid kinds of platformers where you do nothing except jump all the fucking time. Unlike last time, you can't punch anything, but instead you have to find a power-up that lets you shoot at enemies. The graphics are far better than the last game, and the digitized voices are pretty cutting edge for an 8-bit game, but I wouldn't say the game is necessarily better than Miracle World. I don't know, I don't find the platforming as much fun when I just have to jump around for no fucking reason. It's okay when I have to dodge enemies and shit, but when I'm doing it just to get some power-ups, it gets annoying. If you've played Super Pitfall, you know what I'm talking about. It's an okay game, but strangely I find myself actually preferring the first one. But at least this game has something unique. A nude guy with a mohawk who farts out skulls. That is the most hilarious shit I have ever seen in a video game. Alex Kidd also appeared in a spin-off called Alex Kidd BMX Trial only a year after the character's debut, though it was only released in Japan. I tried it out on an emulator just to see what it was like. It's shit. The controls make no sense, as far as I can see, the only point is to keep going until you run out of health. So after a sort of a sequel and the spin-off, it was time for a semi-sequel, semi-spin-off, I guess. Alex Kidd in High-Tech World. Yeah, are you starting to notice a pattern with these game titles? I say this game is a sequel because it's set after the events of the first game, but like BMX Trial, it's not a platformer, but actually, sort of interestingly, it's an adventure game. Now, seeing as I am an adventure game fan, you may think I would actually like this game, but unfortunately, Alex Kidd in High-Tech World happens to be a piss-poor adventure game. Firstly, it doesn't give you a clue as to what you're supposed to do. And though the charm of most adventure games is getting to find out what your purpose for playing it is, Alex Kidd just doesn't do a good job of explaining anything. Secondly, it takes forever to get anywhere since you're stuck in a 2D axis. This is a game that desperately could have used a cursor-clicker interface. And thirdly, the mark of a truly good adventure game is that you love examining things and talking to people even when you're not solving puzzles. In a good adventure game like Monkey Island, when you examine something in the background, the main character will have a funny comment or a jokey description. This game lacks this very vital element, and as a result you'll become bored and uninterested in your goal in the game world very quickly. It's a shame, because an adventure game is a rather bold leap from a platformer, but clearly Sega just lacked the talent to pull it off. 4 games down, it was finally time for Alex Kidd to make his one and only 16-bit entry in the form of Alex Kidd and the Enchanted Castle in 1989. This game actually goes back to the gameplay style of the first installment, which at this point I actually consider a relief after so many ham-handed follow-ups. The game is almost exactly like Miracle World. One-hit deaths, punching enemies to death, getting money, rock, paper, scissors, and the obligatory rice cake at the end of the level. One thing I like is that this time you don't have to challenge anyone into rounds of rock, paper, scissors, but instead you can just do it as a mini-game whenever you feel like it. This is nice, and the level variety is still just as good as before, but I find it a bit anticlimactic. There's no cute little animation of Alex eating the rice cake like in Miracle World, and no characters in the game who tell you the background of the game. Okay, so it's a platformer, so it doesn't really need a story, but those elements made Miracle World more relatable, whereas this one just feels like a generic platformer with no goal but to get to the end of the level. I hate to say it, but 5 games down, it's looking like the first game in the series might actually be my favorite. Well, Alex Kidd and the Enchanted Castle was a commercial failure back in the day, which in combination with the fact that Sonic came out 2 years later, might have led to the series biting the dust soon after. And nothing says it better than the 6th and final game in the series, Alex Kidd in Shinobi World. Yes, this game is literally just Sega's Shinobi game where you instead play as Alex, against cartoony versions of the Shinobi enemies. You can tell a series has gone down the crapper when you're having to put the main character in a much better game just to squeeze some money out of the name. What makes this game even more interesting is that having come out in 1990, this means the game came out a year after the Sega Master System had already been discontinued in Japan, meaning it was principally released for consumption in North America and in Europe. And so ends the sad saga of Alex Kidd, a video game mascot no one remembers. 3 platformers, a racing game, an adventure game, and finally a shittier version of a classic beat-em-up title. I'm TheHande. See you on the next one.